Hey everybody, I should be live. You're going to have to let me know whether you can hear me and see me and all that good stuff. Not yet. I think there's a little bit of a delay. You'll be seeing me soon. I'm looking at a blank screen, but you'll be looking at me soon. So, hi everybody. I'm here going to do just something informal today. I have not been live on my own channel on YouTube for quite some time now. And so I wanted to just introduce myself to people who maybe found me for the first time on the Tucker Carlson appearance last Friday, and just kind of let you know what I have in mind going forward, because I've got some schedule changes and things that came up while Yaron Brook was out of the country. He was in Brazil for a while. We couldn't do a show for 2 weekends. And since then, I've been unable to do shows on Saturday. So now we're trying to coordinate schedules, and he was traveling yesterday. So hopefully we're going to be able to do shows on Tuesdays, fairly regularly on Tuesdays, in his normal show time slot, which is 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific time. So I'm hoping that we're going to do that together going forward. But I'm also thinking of doing solo shows again, again, due to being on Tucker last week. But one thing I just want to let you guys know. So, how in the world did me, I'm unknown and everything. How did I end up on Tucker and talking to him? That was actually the fourth time that I was on Tucker. But it'll be interesting to you, I think, maybe to hear that there's just this series of, little things that happened over many years that got me there. So many years ago, I was on Twitter, and I was following somebody on Twitter who had retweeted something from an account called TS Elabot. So it's, T.S. Eliot, but it's a bot. And I thought in my mind, of course, because I'm an Ayn Rand fan, I consider myself an objectivist. I thought, okay, I wonder if there's an Ayn Rand bot account on Twitter. So I searched for it, and there's not. And so, of course, I just grabbed that handle right away, Ayn Rand bot, and I figure, okay, I'll do something with it. And of course, the goal would be, like the TSL bot account, to quote out tweets, to tweet out quotations from Ayn Rand. I'm sitting here nervous because this is the first time all the Tucker people are going to come and see me on my channel. Sorry, guys. Normally, I'm more relaxed in this stuff. Anyway, yeah, so I'm going to tweet out quotes from Ayn Rand on this account. And at first, I was doing them manually, so I grab a book from Ayn Rand and I'm typing it in, and it goes out, and it's as I'm typing it, it goes out live on Twitter. And then I figure, okay, I've got to figure out how to automate this. And so I went through this whole process of looking at different services that could do it. And I found one, and then I've given a few payments to the guys over the years. They're awesome. They have this service that I use. And it allows me to have a full database of quotations, say 300, 400 quotations, and schedule them for the next month and a half or so and put it out there. So I create this thing and I put it out there, and it starts to get followers. And I noticed that one of the followers that came on fairly early on was Tammy Bruce. And Tammy Bruce was a commentator on radio. I think she was on radio at the time. Maybe she had just made the switch over to internet radio. And I really liked her and everything. And I noticed she followed the Ayn Rand bot. And when somebody follows you on Twitter, you can send them a direct message. So I send her a direct message, and I just, thank her. And then she wrote me something back about, Dr. So-and-so, whatever. And I thought when she wrote to me, that when she called me doctor, that she was referring to Leonard Peikoff. And of course, Leonard was my ex-husband and stuff. So maybe the association. And I wrote her back something to that effect. She wrote back, she goes, no, I meant you. Because I do have a PhD, but I don't call myself doctor or anything. I just go out and do my stuff. So, and I had just at the time, I think this was back in 2012, something like that. And I had started my own podcast. It was probably 2011. I'm telling you, it was probably very, very early in my podcasting career, because I started my podcast in 2011. It was on the spur of the moment. Again, another thing that I was, just had a idea. I want to try this. And it was because a number of objectivists were having a debate about the value of the movie of Atlas Shrugged. It was like the first Atlas Shrugged movie, part one. And, they, it was very contentious, and you know how these debates get on social media. So I figured, okay, I'll do a webinar because I've seen people use this webinar format. I like the format. So I go ahead and I go on to GoToWebinar. That was where I did my first podcast, and had people call in and, you know, talk to me, and they'd say, okay, this is their opinion on the movie. And then we, you know, discuss it a little, and then I let somebody else express their view. And apparently somebody told me that I did a good job hosting that little webinar. So I thought, okay, well, so maybe I will try this. I'll podcast on a regular basis. So I was doing it for a while at this time that also Tammy Bruce had followed the Ayn Rand bot. So here I am. I'm so early in my career. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm so fresh. And I write her this direct message on Twitter, and I say, hey, you know, if you ever need a guest host, just let me know, you know. I'm crazy, right? Because she's this established talk show host, and she's doing her internet show. So if you ever need one. And I don't hear from her for a long time. I don't necessarily expect to. But then the next year, she decided she wanted to go on vacation, and she didn't want to actually leave her listeners, you know, completely in the lurch. And this was 2013. And she said, yeah, if you want to go ahead and guest host. And she let me guest host a series of her shows. And it was really cool. I really loved the opportunity to do that. One of the things that I got to do then, you know, it turned out, remember, 2013 was the year of the Snowden revelations. And at the same time, I had some connections with the former UN ambassador, John Bolton, who's now part of the Trump administration. And Bolton was going out on all the talk shows after the Snowden revelations saying it was treason and he should be hanged and all this kind of stuff. And at the same time, we had arranged for Bolton to be a guest on Tammy Bruce's show while I was guest hosting. So I actually got to interview John Bolton and have a discussion with him about Snowden and argue with him about Snowden, because I see Snowden still as a hero. You know, I have my disagreements with him and I have my disappointments in him, but I still see him as a hero. So I got to have that discussion with him back then. So it was a great opportunity. So that was Tammy. And then Tammy since has gone to Fox News, and she's been a commentator regularly on all the shows. She's even guest hosted for Tucker and everything now. But then it turns out, right? And I was actually going to just leave this whole commentary space, and I was going to go do something completely different. And last spring, I got out of the blue. I guess it was June. It was June, early in June sometime. You know, I get this invitation to go on to Tucker. And it was because Tammy Bruce referred me. Tucker was looking for an atheist, and he wanted an atheist to debate a study that they had that talked about atheists being more closed-minded than religious people. And so that was the debate I was supposed to have with Tucker. But, you know, so here's the reason. So I created the Ayn Rand bot. Tammy Bruce followed it. I had enough gumption to write her and say, hey, could I be a guest host on her show? I did a halfway decent job. And even though we have a lot of disagreements in philosophy and sometimes in politics now, you know, she still thought enough of me that when Tucker was looking for an atheist, she thought, okay, well, here's an atheist who could come here and debate this. And she let me have that opportunity. As I said, the appearance last Friday was my 4th time being on Tucker. So I guess when I've gone on, I've handled myself well enough that they did want to have me on again. So that's how all of that happened. But I mean, you can see that how you just don't know what one little bit of activism that you engage in is going to lead to. And, you know, I had been hosting, and then I did a little bit of guest hosting for Tammy, just a little bit off and on, not so much. But I've been hosting a podcast regularly on a weekly basis from 2011 all the way up to last year, 2017. And it's, you know, it grew a bit, but it, you know, nothing too big and no big opportunities, whatever. And then suddenly out of the blue, I get to go on to Tucker. It was amazing and awesome. As I understand it, they would still like to have me back again, which is great. Some people were commenting like, oh, he seemed angry at you and everything else. But kudos to Tucker, because he does have a lot of people on who really disagree with him, and he just goes at it with them. And whatever anybody thinks of his style, it makes for good television and good ratings. And he continues to have people on. It's a short format and you can't get much done, but sometimes you can say a few things and you can get people thinking. And that's really my goal there. I've got some comments here that I'm going to look at here on YouTube a little. I'm not used to, I've been doing these shows with Yaron Brook, and I come in with the preparation and I make the program notes and I really put them to work with the subject, but a lot of times I don't look at the comments. So I have to get used to that again. So hello, everybody who is joining me. I'm grateful that you're coming out here. One person is saying that my little story is quite the story. No small coincidences. It's a great appearance. I mean, this is the way I feel. I feel I worked really hard and not necessarily knowing that that's where it was going to lead, but I'd been doing a lot of different things for years that did lead up to that point. And then the question was, make the most of it. And I felt like I did the best that I could do at the time. I still, when I go on Tucker, I still get a bit nervous. The fourth time was a little better than the previous 3 times. And there's all kinds of reasons that go into that. But, I love the opportunity to go on there. I will do it again when they have me, if they'll let me do it. There are things on which Tucker and I agree, and that's not what they want, right? They want me to go on when there's a topic about which I disagree with him. And there are several of those. So I think it's going to happen. Some of the topics are going to be less pleasant and more difficult for me to deal with than others. And I'm not going to say what they are, because then they'll try to go for those right away and get me back or something. I don't know. Has anything else come from being on Tucker? So that's the thing, so I'm trying to figure this out. And was I going to come here with a complete show today? I am going to address, I got a comment at my blog. Actually, I have to approve the comment, but I've got it in my email. My blog is moderated, by the way. So sometimes if you try to post a comment on my blog at don'tletitgo.com and you don't see it show up right away, it's because I've got a moderated blog. So I've got to look at it. I don't have a staff. I can't afford assistants and stuff. By the way, contribute to my Patreon if you ever want that to happen. But someone's asking here, what's coming out from that? What's going to come out from that? I'm trying to decide what to do, because I had in my mind thought, well, I'm just going to co-host a show with Yaron and maybe work on my book. And probably there's not going to be a whole lot of opportunity for me. I mean, doing this to be able to talk to you professionally and make a living at it is like being a rock star. I mean, it is just, it's why I said when I was on with Tucker, yeah, I don't make any money when I go to Fox, but it's a potential opportunity that maybe somebody will see me there that wants to have me do something like this full time. I would love to do it. I was thinking about this earlier, because my mom always used to say, success is just doing something that you love and getting paid for it. And my mom didn't have a whole lot of good advice in her life, unfortunately. But that was one of the awesome things that I stick with. I got a lot of fun advice and good advice from my grandmother. My mom, some here and there. But that was good, and you think, okay, if you could do it. But there are different things that I could do where, even if Tucker never paid me, but allowed me to come on every so often as a guest and talk about issues that were important enough to me and worthwhile enough for me to come and do it, then I, would go ahead and try to make a living doing something else, and then just come and do that every so often. Obviously, if I'm going to do something like that more regularly, I would need to be paid, at least because for me, I take those appearances really seriously. And the whole day I'm just going around in my mind. It never comes out as I have it planned that it's going to. And what'll invariably happen is I'll be sitting there in the studio and I'll be listening. They have a little piece in your ear and you're listening to Tucker in the previous 2 segments or so. And he'll tee up the segment that I'm going to be on with him. And he'll introduce it in a way that's slightly different from whatever I expected, given that the producer, they send me certain stuff. And I have to rejigger in my mind, okay, how am I going to come in with this? And of course, I don't even know, right? I hear him tee it up before the commercial break, say, but then when he comes back and he's going to introduce me, he'll come in with some sort of a question, some sort of an approach, a framing of the issue. And I'm not necessarily ready for that. And I have to handle it. So, I've told people, and thank you everybody for the feedback and the comments that you've given me on social media. but they'll ask me, couldn't have you said this, or maybe you should have mentioned that. Or I look at it as, if I go in there and I make a few worthwhile points on the issue, and I'm able to handle with professionalism and everything else whatever Tucker throws at me, then that's a wonderful day. I mean, that's the greatest day ever. That's all I can hope for. And so, I go in there with all kinds of talking points and directions it could go, but I don't know where it's going to go. And often I'll have to just draw on whatever my subconscious feeds me at the time, when he's pitching a certain question. So I was really happy about the way it went this last time. It did take me a lot of thought and preparation. Straighten out my necklace. So yeah, if I was going to do this more regularly, and particularly go on long form shows and things like that, I would need to get paid to do it, because it does require, for me to do it well, quite a bit of concentration. Maybe I would get better at it as time goes on. Who knows? So I'm trying to figure out what to do on the side. And some of you know, because you participated in the little survey that I posted at my blog at don'tletitgo.com, and also on social media. One of the things I was thinking of doing was teaching a class, because I've been a university professor, and some of the classes that I've taught, when I've talked about them on social media, people have said, oh, I wish I could take a class with you. That would be so much fun. And, I figure, okay, well, maybe I'll do one of those. And so there's a couple courses that I put out there for people to give their opinion on which one would be more valuable. It turns out that people were equally interested in both of them. One of them is philosophy of law, and the philosophy of law course centers around the very abstract sounding question: is there a necessary connection between morality and law? Now, that's very abstract sounding, but it will translate into various sub-issues. So for example, Thomas Aquinas said, an unjust law is no law at all. Do you agree with him? If you agree with him, you're saying something about that more abstract question. Similarly, there's a question of whether you have a moral duty to obey the law. And in particular, do you have a moral duty to obey the law simply because it's the law? That's another issue that comes up. You could even take the Martin Luther King approach and ask this question, because he actually believed that you have a moral duty to disobey an unjust law. Now, Rand disagreed with that. So that's an interesting debate to have. So you see how there's some interesting issues that come out of it. For example, I think we still don't know who the anonymous opinion writer for the New York Times is, right? But if that anonymous opinion writer is correct, and that we actually have an amoral president, a president with no morality, does that matter? Maybe it does if you believe that there is a necessary connection between morality and law, and so that it's important for people who are the stewards of the Constitution. President is a very, very important one, for them to be moral in character. So that's one course. The other course that I was thinking of teaching, which is the one that I'm actually leaning more towards, is one in introductory logic. And introductory logic includes, if you take a really good course in introductory logic, either in high school or in college, it includes a survey of what is known as the informal logical fallacies. And they're called informal because they are fallacies that are in any sort of form of argument. They don't depend on a certain form of argument. There are also formal fallacies that you talk in the class as well. But one of the focuses that I wanted to have were the informal fallacies, because one of the things that you see in debate about important issues online and elsewhere and on Tucker's show and everything are commissions of the fallacies. So appeals to authority. Trump likes to appeal to authority a lot in his tweets, because he'll talk about this person said his economy is so great, or this group loves him. These, and especially if it's law enforcement and stuff, people that they know that conservatives respect, he'll appeal to them, and you're supposed to love him and the job he's doing because you love them. So that's certain types of appeal to authority. And you see appeal to authority also in the terms of blind reliance on experts. There are ways to use experts in that aren't appeals to authority. And in the class, I would talk about that. But there are a lot of people who will just say, oh, well, so-and-so said it, and therefore it must be true. And the so-and-so has some sort of degree behind him. There's a reason I don't call myself doctor. I'm not trying to get you to agree with me based on a degree that I have. So that's one fallacy, appeal to authority. You see a lot of ad hominem out there. You can't know something because you're either rich or not rich, or you can't know something because you're white or not white. Those types of arguments, ad hominem. We also have a lot of what Rand called argument from intimidation. You could say appeal to laughter. That's another way that I've seen it put. There's a little bit of that in the show from Tucker, where he was basically laughing at me. And that's not an argument, as everybody knows. There's no argument there. But the attempt is to discredit whatever it is that I'm saying simply by asserting that it's ridiculous, going on the assumption that it's ridiculous, and acting accordingly. So there's a lot of that out there. I'm trying to think of other prevalent fallacies that you see out there. Unshelled Coast says appeal to laughter. Bill Maher did that with a socialist once. Okay, interesting. Yeah, but anyway, the one thing that I like about that class is that it would improve the quality of the debate going into the midterm elections, because it sounds like it's going to get very heated. So I like the idea of doing that. And my plan had been, before the whole Tucker thing, to say, okay, I'll teach class and maybe do one class in the fall, one class in the spring, and start it in a couple weeks. And that's a plan I still might do. I might combine that with doing a weekly show with you guys here. If I do a weekly show, the format that I'm inclined to do is something that was, another, I have, I think, good ideas, but sometimes I do better job carrying through on those ideas than not. And some things I've been more consistent with than not. One of the ideas that I've had, which I think is a good one, and it might be worth carrying out a little bit more, is the news sandwich. And those of you who have followed me for a long time know that I had this idea for news sandwich. It was going to be a blog. And the concept is that there's a lot of bad news out there. It's a lot easier to stomach the news, to keep up with the news, if you make sure that in addition to looking at the bad news that you really should be aware of, you shouldn't evade what the state of the world is. If you can sandwich that bad news in between a couple pieces of good news, so you see the news sandwich, good news, bad news, and then good news, it's a lot more palatable. And so the concept is to do a short show. I tried it a couple times on video and I kept going on and on. I can just talk. So the challenge would be to do a fairly short form show, maybe just 15 minutes or something, and maybe do that once a week in addition to doing a show with your own whenever we can get our schedules coordinated, and then do the class, and then also write my book. And the question is, can I juggle all of those with all of my other responsibilities? I'm going through this in my mind right now. Another idea that I have, again, I don't throw my degrees out there all the time, but I've got the law degree and the PhD. And in law, my specialty has been the right to privacy and privacy policy in particular. And that's the subject, of my book. And so my idea has been, again, when I was thinking I'm going to go sort of away from commentary, there's no way I'm going to be a rock star, only Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson and, Dave Rubin, only those guys make money doing this. I don't know if I can do that. So I have to figure out how I'm going to support myself and maybe do this sometimes. Right. And I thought, well, maybe what I'll do is become a privacy compliance consultant, because I think, unfortunately, in the grand scheme of things, but, it's not that the content is bad, but there's a lot of privacy law out there now, and there's going to be more. There is a new California privacy law that goes into effect in 2020 There's the GDPR that went into effect this year. So anybody that does business in Europe or does a substantial amount of business with Europeans is affected by the GDPR potentially if they collect, regularly personal data about what they call data subjects, people in the European Union. So because there is a need for people to be able to comply with the law, and also because I see an opening to push privacy law in a good direction post Carpenter, I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll go into that field and do some privacy legal consulting, perhaps even serve as a data protection officer for people, but really help them make their compliance streamlined, make their compliance in line with their business interests and ethical, which I believe can be done. And as I said, hopefully to help also push that law, that area of law in the right direction. So that's another thing that I've been thinking of doing. And at the moment, again, if I go on Tucker and I do really well and you think, okay, well, maybe it's going to push me more in the direction of wanting to do more commentary and less of that, I have things up in the air at the moment. I still have the idea in the grand scheme of things. If I'm going to make a living doing like this, doing something like this, it's like being a rock star. It's just, you're incredibly lucky and fortunate if you can make a living having, making commentary on news and politics, culture, and things like that. It would be a lot of fun. And there's a lot of people who are very talented at it. And there's a lot of people who are better connected and better negotiators, and they don't have views that are so outside, right? So on the one hand, I'm not an official spokesperson for objectivism at all. I don't work for the Ayn Rand Institute or anything. I'm just me. I'm out there. But I also have these really radical views. And so, does Fox want to hire me if I'm not a Trump supporter? And, who knows? I don't know. When I look at Fox commentators, most all of them are Trump supporters. Would they want somebody with a different point of view who's actually a commentator for them? So you see the dilemma. So to me, my underlying goal is to continue to make myself available as much as Tucker wants to have me on, and, pitch topics and everything else. I want to continue to do that. And what I'm going to do on the side of that, I don't know. I do see a way forward between, as Robert says here, do news sandwich. I think news sandwich is a very cool concept. And I have, newssandwich.net out there. You can go and check out some samples of it. And maybe that's what I need to bring back and go ahead and start those next week. They are short. They're fun. Maybe I'll even do one later this week. Let me see if I get inspired by something. But, I just get a triumvirate of stories, 2 good ones and 1 bad one, and come up with some transitions. It's really fun. If you go to my social media, I put myself out there as compulsive creative extremist. And I thought about that for a really long time. Creative extremist is the phrase from Martin Luther King's Letters from Birmingham Jail. And I love that, for a lot of things. As I said, it makes great discussion in terms of, do you have a moral duty to disobey an unjust law? I admire people who disobey unjust laws, but I don't think you have a moral duty to do it. You can have that great discussion. But the thing that I really love about that essay is that he stands up for extremism. People smear extremists all the time. And he says, well, what if you're for extreme justice and extreme good and extreme love? Why not, right? And he defends extremists. He says what we are in need of is more creative extremists. And so I see myself as that. And I put compulsive in there because, again, I have all these different ideas. And some of them I'm really good at consistently carrying out. And some of them I haven't been as good at consistently carrying out. One of them was this news sandwich, which I do think is a really good idea. And so that might be the way forward. I think, my plan of attack is that I'm going to go ahead and try to do the logic class because there's such a dire need for that. And that would start on a Monday is what I'm thinking, because that was the Monday. You know, you're never going to make everybody happy. But as I recall, a Monday was the response that I got the most, that the most people would be available. So I would do a live class on Mondays starting the 24th of September, and it would go for 10 weeks. There would actually end up having to be off a couple Mondays in there because of obligations that I've got. But we would do, 10-week logic class, and it would just be a traditional introductory logic class that I think is not being taught in colleges as much as it should be. And I think it could be of value. It could help out there. And of course, I would be charging for the class. So that would provide a little bit of income for me, which would be nice. Because this, I'm getting to the point where I'm going to have to do something in order to be able to support myself while I continue to take advantage of those opportunities. The other thing is the news sandwich. And I could do that. And as I said, make myself available for your own. People are asking how much are the classes going to be. I'm still debating the exact price point, but one thing I will tell you, I have promised this already. People who are patrons on Patreon, or if you tell me, and I know you have, there are a few of you who are regular show supporters just through my blog and PayPal at don'tletitgo.com. I have a few people who have donated on a monthly basis through there. So anybody who's been doing that is going to automatically get 10% off the top of the course. I have I think a couple people that I actually owe a class to as well. And I'm going to just give them a comp class. So when I contact you, you'll know who you are. But everybody who is a $5 or above patron on my Patreon page is going to get a 10% discount. So given that my path forward, I was talking with a friend the other day, and I was saying how I just suffer sometimes from indecision. And it is really hard. I was on a completely different course when I got that invitation to go on Tucker. I was in a computer programming boot camp. I had decided I was just going to leave this whole realm, and I was having fun with it. I was learning a little bit of web design. And if you saw the Nike ad that I put out there, right, the spoof on the Nike ad, making fun of Tucker, it was using my skills that I use in this program called Sketch that I got from that boot camp. So I was learning something and I was having fun. And then I get this invite from Tucker, and I thought, oh, well, I'll just go be a host. I'll make a living doing this. And then I learned very quickly, it's going to be really hard. It's a super long uphill battle to do this stuff, I hope, maybe not. Maybe somebody will want to hire me tomorrow. I don't know. I just don't know. So what do I have to do? I have to go forward with some reasonable plan. And my idea is that I will, as I said, do the news sandwich, go ahead and do some shows with your own, make myself available for Tucker, pitch topics and things more than I had before, because I really hadn't pitched that much. I was thinking, does he really want me on again, or who knows? So I'll pitch more topics, do the class, and part of it is going to depend on you guys as well. So one of the things that I want you to do, if you're watching me now, subscribe on my YouTube channel. Subscribe. I'm trying to make it to 1,000. 1,000 is the magic number where I could do things like super chat, and that's something that could also bring in the a little bit of extra money for me and things like that. The other thing you could do, as I said, is become a patron over at Patreon. I will give you guys a 10% discount. Those of you who have expressed interest about the class, you filled out the survey and you actually gave me your email address, expect an email in a couple days or so. And someone's saying close to 1,000 subscriptions to unlock Super Chat. I thought it was 1,000, but if it's fewer than that, that's great. I'm in the 700s and like the high 700s now. So I don't have a whole lot more to go. Help me out. Help me get subscriptions over at YouTube, because that would really be great to unlock Super Chat as a feature. Subscribe over at Patreon, become a patron of my show. That'll show me that you want me to continue with this. But as it stands, of course, as I said, a long series of events since 2011 led up to being able to do that. I enjoy doing it. I'm hoping to continue to provide value that way. And I'm going to try to do everything I can to make myself available to do that. But I'm going to have to figure out how to earn a living at the same time. And so, I have to juggle all this. If you want to help, that's awesome. The other thing I need to do is make regular time to write a book. And of course, that's the hardest thing to get anybody to do. So what I pledge to do to you guys is I will give you updates. I'm giving myself some accountability now. If I give you a news sandwich, at the end of the news sandwich, I'll let you know how I'm doing with my book. Oh, I hate saying that. But I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to get some accountability on this. I have a book on the right to privacy that I think could make a valuable contribution. I think I have something to say going forward about Carpenter. I'm not going to go into the whole details now. We could talk about that in the future again, but I've talked about it in the past. Those of you who have heard me talk about the Carpenter case that was just decided in June, you can, see what it is that I think I have to say there. But so I'll go forward with that. There may be some opportunities to get involved in privacy policy and privacy consulting more. And if that ends up looking like it's going to be the better opportunity, as soon as I jump on that and it's going to take away from the activities that you guys see yourself as funding, I will let you know. But I have to make a decision. As I said, I lost my train of thought, right? There's a meme out there, and I shared it a while ago about women versus men, and women go on these tangents and men just go straight line. So my tangent, I was going to tell you the conversation I was having with my friend. The conversation was women are indecisive more traditionally. That's the rumor, that we women are indecisive. And so then I said, well, I wonder if I would give up being a woman so I could be less decisive. And I had to think, no, not at all. I like being a woman. So I'm not going to give up on that. But it's hard for me when there's, maybe this small chance of doing something that's like being a rock star versus something that seems like it draws upon the degrees that I've worked for and the specialty that I have in academia and the certification that I just got for myself this summer in European privacy law, all of those things. Why not dive in and do a normal job providing value to people as opposed to the right? And sometimes those things are hard to decide. So I will go on this path and I will let you know if there's any updates. That's the best thing that I can do. Katie in the comments is saying, pitch an idea to Tucker using law relating to the Kavanaugh confirmation. Okay, now here's the thing. I haven't weighed in on the Kavanaugh confirmation. And one thing you'll know about me, and this is another reason that I haven't pitched a ton of topics to Tucker. I don't feel that I'm the person to talk about every single thing. There are a lot of topics that I can have a valuable discussion with Tucker about, but Kavanaugh and whether he's a good Supreme Court pick is one of them that I haven't really weighed in on. The one thing that I do know about him is that he has said some things that I find kind of ominous on Fourth Amendment, on privacy. I think that I heard Akil Amar on Tucker's show in my ear the other day saying that he thought Kavanaugh would be good. And I'm not sure if he's thought through all the Fourth Amendment implications, but he was defending Kavanaugh on some grounds. Someone's talking about women. Yeah, women are more agreeable, according to Jordan Peterson, and all those types of things. Asked Tucker to get me appearances on other shows. I was on another Fox show. I was on with Steve Hilton. I think it's called Next Revolution with Steve Hilton. And for a while, Steve Hilton was also following me on Twitter, but I think because he's a big Trump supporter and I do not like Trump, and also because I was doing other things when I was on the show to question his populism, he doesn't want me. So, kudos really, because Tucker does have people more with a range of views. Now, granted, he will, he'll laugh at them and he'll throw them curveballs, and it's a very tough appearance, but he has you on. So give him that. Anshel Ko says, isn't Steve Hilton the positive populism guy? Yeah, exactly. So I went up to LA and I did that show, a long form show there. And I did fine as far as it goes, but in content, Hilton did not like me. And so I haven't been back on that show. So, as I said, there's a lot of uncertainty for someone like me going into this, because whereas I think I have the skills and I think I do have a lot of valuable things to say on a number of topics, and I make a habit of being very prepared for my appearances, nonetheless, my viewpoints are so outside the normal that people don't really know where to place me. And, do they want to have me as somebody, representing Fox? I think they should. I think that Fox, if it really wants to be the non-mainstream media and have all sorts of non-leftist views, that the views that I represent are some of them. The way I see, some people were talking about, why don't you correct Tucker about libertarian, because he calls you libertarian. The label objectivist just doesn't mean anything to him. And actually, for the audience, the objectivist label will, for a lot of them, either be completely meaningless, it won't even mean anything, or some people have had contact with really abrasive, obnoxious objectivists. And so, the labels are just this way for the audience to pigeonhole you. They're not very meaningful. What I see in terms of me being different from the other libertarians on Fox is that I see myself as more value oriented. And I was having a discussion yesterday with someone, and one of the things that came out is it's important to protect certain rights and values that we have in the culture and try to argue for them. So, for example, free speech. But, and Yaron's really good at doing this when I'm on the show with him too. He's very good at sticking to the value, the underlying value that's being protected, right? The purpose of free speech is not so that you can go out there and offend everybody you want all the time. That's not the value. Now, it is true that we need to protect the right of people to offend other people as long as they're not threatening or anything else. But to always have that value orientation is the thing that I want to bring to it. So because now this raises in my mind, my woman mind that's going all over the place, it raises in my mind the question that I wanted to address, or it's really a comment that I wanted to address that I got on my blog. So Craig came to my blog, and Craig, I haven't approved your comment yet because I haven't been in my email, but I will. This is what he made as a comment to the post for today's show. He says, wage rates are determined by supply and demand for the productivity and skill level of the worker. Neither the needs of the worker nor the whims or virtues of the employer are relevant. Both the wealth of Bezos and the profitability of Amazon, which, by the way, is nil to the best of my knowledge, on the one hand, and he says, being glad, not grateful like an altruist, for the public value created by Amazon and appreciating the innovation of Bezos, on the other hand, are false issues in this context. Now, you guys, you're going to probably have to go read this comment in order to digest that. There was one thing that I wanted to address in here, though, Craig. And you're saying that it's a false issue whether we appreciate the innovation of Bezos. And see, this is where I disagree, right? One of my main goals in going on to the Tucker Carlson appearance was to say that as Americans traditionally have appreciated, have valued innovation, success, entrepreneurship, wealth creation. We have thought that money is good. It's not supposed to be that because somebody is really rich, that therefore you're going to attack them and say that there's special moral duties that exist for them, but not for everybody else. Bezos earned his money. I don't know a whole ton about Bezos, but I have heard some of the rags to riches stuff, like he used to pack boxes out of his garage or something. Over here in the YouTube comments, someone is saying that Amazon just turned their first profit this year. I know that they were unprofitable for a very long time. For me, part of being an American is having that American sense of life, as Ayn Rand called it. My blog is called Don't Let It Go. And the essay, Don't Let It Go, is Rand saying, do not let the American sense of life go. And crucial elements of that as she saw that, crucial things that Americans were unique in, that they were different from Europeans in, is in admiring entrepreneurship, bringing yourself up by your bootstraps, wealth creation, innovation. And I saw the attack on Bezos as contradicting that traditional American spirit, because there's nothing that Bezos does in terms of using the benefits that are provided by government that is different from anybody else in the marketplace. The only difference that you can, say makes a difference with Bezos is that he has been hugely creative and successful. He's got this vast business enterprise and he's got a huge salary. That doesn't make him guilty. That, in fact, it's like, look, he's in this, he's in this mixed economy environment. We do not have a capitalist economy. Nothing like capitalism out there. There are so many market interventions and stuff that he's had to dance around and figure out how to make a profitable, huge, innovative company that has made all of our lives easier. That's a tremendous accomplishment. And to sit back and attack him, especially, I learned today, Tucker makes $7 million a year, somebody said. Now, I don't have a citation on that, but somebody said that. I know he must make quite a bit because I read some other things about the prices of homes that he bought in Washington, D.C. or something, very expensive homes. So, he makes some good salary. If he makes $7 million, I mean, that's fine. More power to him. He creates a whole lot of value and wealth out there. And as I said on the show, and I mean it completely, is that I trust and hope and expect, and, I think it's good that he makes a large salary. But, the fact that you make a large salary, it just shows that you have provided value. It doesn't show that you therefore have a special moral duty that doesn't apply to anybody else. And the value orientation around that is a big part of it. Anything that I do in terms of commentary, I don't want to just come in there and talk in terms of this is the right. And, you want to also talk about the underlying value that the right is meant to protect and keep that grounding, that tie to reality for this. So long story short, the big circle, how am I different from other Fox libertarian commentators? I would differ from them in bringing, I think, a more value-oriented perspective. And of course, there are other issues in which objectivists will disagree with some libertarians. Libertarian, as Onkar Ghate has, so wonderfully explained in a lecture a couple of years ago, libertarianism is this huge, big umbrella. It's almost a meaningless term. And so in a way, that's really the most innocuous term that Tucker can throw at me, because whatever he's calling me, part of the angle with it is that half of his audience is automatically going to tune me out based on that. But I think libertarian has become such kind of a bland term, and there's such a broad umbrella that people know it, it doesn't have any particular negative connotation necessarily. It's not necessarily positive either. It's almost meaningless. So I'm not going to argue against it. I'm not going to insist on objectivism, because that uses up 2 minutes of my 5, that sort of thing. Now, what do we got in the comments here? Why are some women indecisive? Genes or society? Hormones? I don't know. And again, these are all generalizations that are supposedly true of women. Women are more prone to indecision. I'm sure there's plenty of indecisive men, and there are plenty of women who are more decisive. And I'm not always indecisive. Sometimes I'm more decisive. One person is commenting over here on YouTube. I went to a libertarian meeting once, and there were communists. Yeah, there are better and worse libertarians, to be sure. But as I said, when I go there, my whole goal is to say a few valuable things on the topic, prepare a few valuable points to contribute to the discussion, and otherwise handle whatever Tucker throws at me and try to have a good discussion with him. Those 2 goals. And if I can do those and keep doing those, then I'll want to keep doing it, and I hope they'll keep having me. That's basically how it goes. So do I have any other questions over, again, subscribe, go over to my YouTube and let me click on here. Yeah. So any of you guys who are watching me right now, if you haven't subscribed yet, please go subscribe. Please go over to my Patreon and become a patron. Oh, I've got a question coming. Good. Excellent. I also asked people on my Patreon if they had questions. Okay, Tucker's salary from Wiki is 500,000, net worth 8 million. Okay, that sounds a little more reasonable. So somebody must have substituted the net worth for the salary. And kudos to him as well, right? So, salary, yes, he's earning his salary. God, 5 days a week and everything else, right? He's working hard. But also accumulating a net worth of 8 million from a 500,000 salary means he's not just going out and blowing it and splurging all the time and stuff. So good for him, and this is good. Wealth creation and earning that salary. We admire these things in this country. Oh, around how much will the classes be? A rough estimate. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and send it out in a couple days. I'm not even going to throw it out there yet. I will be sending you the email. If you're interested in getting that email from me, make sure that you have filled out the survey and put your email address in there. Anything else? Oh, people are talking about how the Atlas Shrugged movies are a sad memory. I saw only the first Atlas Shrugged movie and I didn't see the other ones after that because I was not impressed. And what else? Okay, well, I don't know if there's anything else for me to talk to you. It's about 10 minutes shorter than I had planned. That at my outside, I was going to do an hour. As usual, I talked for quite a long time. People talk about disobeying the law by speeding. Sometimes you would be risking your life and doing something downright unethical if you weren't speeding. If everybody around you is going 80 and you're sitting there going 55 or 65, you are risking your life and everybody else's life. You're right there in the way. So that's no good. A lot of us speed a little bit every single day. So that's one question. If I tell you, if I walk in here and I say, I broke the law today, do you automatically think that I'm a bad person just because I said, hey, I broke the law today? You want to know what the law was. And that alone tells you that in your mind, at least implicitly, you don't agree with what is called in philosophy. Here's the abstract sounding term. Here it comes. Prima facie. You don't think that there's a prima facie duty to obey the law. Prima facie just means on its face without knowing anything else. So if I don't tell you anything else, if I just say, hey, I broke the law today, do you think I'm a bad person? And I would say probably most people would answer no. And that means that they don't think that there's that duty. That's not a rigorous philosophical analysis. And what you do get in a proper philosophy of law course is a rigorous analysis. There's a great essay that I like to go through in my, what I call greatest hits of philosophy of law. So anyway, I'm hoping to do that. So the plan is for people who sign up to the class, in a couple days, you'll get a confirmation that I'm going to go forward with this. One guy says, I sell cocaine. Am I a bad guy? I would say, yeah. Let me tell you a story. I had a stepfather who was really awesome, and his name was Rick. And he sold cocaine long before I knew him. And with that, he got in trouble and he ended up having to go to AA and stuff. An interesting story. He ended up going to AA with Carrie Fisher, and he dated Carrie Fisher a couple times, never came to anything or whatever. But then some years later, I got to meet him and he became my stepdad. And he was, never took any cocaine anymore or anything. He told me about cocaine. He says, never try it because it's so awesome. You'll be addicted and everything. And I never tried it. And I was glad I didn't try it. Years later, my, kind of fast forward, my mother ended up dying, but I was still close to my stepdad. And it was only about a year and a half after my mother had died, and I was, kind of bonding even more with my stepdad. We'd go out for brunch on Sundays and stuff, and he ended up getting remarried, and I was so happy for him that he found somebody, and it was just wonderful. And then I get this call one Sunday morning, and I thought the reason I was getting the call was because I was late to meet him for brunch or something, and it turned out he had died. He dropped dead from a heart attack. And part of it, I think, was that he had a bit of a genetic condition with his heart, but his heart, I believe, was also weakened from the cocaine. And Carrie Fisher was also tremendously weakened by cocaine. And I think that contributed to her death eventually as well. Cocaine, very addictive, not good stuff. Should you have the right to sell it? Sure. But would I want to be friends with somebody who sells cocaine for a living? No. So you asked for the answer. There you are. When is selling drugs necessarily immoral? When you know you're selling something that chances are is going to hurt somebody. Yeah. Cigarettes, not necessarily, but cocaine, how addictive that I've seen that it was and how destructive. But again, I have that personal experience to bring to bear on it as well. I did not enjoy getting that phone call back in 1997 that my stepdad he dropped dead. They couldn't revive him at all. Cars hurt people. Yeah, but cars generally don't hurt people, right? It's like nuclear. Nuclear doesn't generally hurt people either. So anyway, you asked for the answer. That was my answer. So everybody, I'm going to let you go. A few more minutes until the top of the hour, but thank you. I thank you very much for joining me. Again, I urge you, come over and support me at the Patreon. If you haven't taken my survey yet about the course and you want to be included, you want to put your email address in there and get the email on the list, go ahead and do that. If you prefer not to do that and you just follow up my blog, I'm going to go ahead and make a post at my blog as well that will allow you to enroll in the class. It'll be once a week for 10 weeks. I'm going to make it so that you don't have to also buy a textbook in addition, but you'll learn standard logic course, the standard logic course that we need so much in schools today so that people can have a reasoned debate as opposed to resorting to all sorts of attacks and threats. And, on campus now, it's taken as a given that it's okay for people to use physical force even to try to stop people from speaking if they disagree. I would think if people felt armed to think critically about things and have reasoned discussions, that maybe they'd be less likely to do that. So I'm going to go with that one first. Look for an email from me, and otherwise look for a news sandwich from me sometime soon. Someone on the comments was saying the sooner the better in terms of giving you a news sandwich, and I tend to agree. To kind of strike while the iron's hot, right? So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to go. Yeah, no textbook. They say you'd want to maybe have a textbook. I can suggest an optional book and then make the textbook optional. So if you're the person who likes the textbook, you can do the textbook. If not, not. Okay. So thanks, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting, and I'll see you next time.